Hi, so I'm Josh Cobler, and I'm going to do my presentation on perspective. And I want to start off by actually showing a painting that has very poor perspective. As you can see, all the receding lines don't go to a common vanishing point, and the people in the background are actually the same size, if not larger, than the people in the foreground, making the effect that they're kind of towering over them. And this painting was done by Simon Martini prior to the discovery of linear perspective. Linear perspective was discovered by Philip Brunelleschi in 1420, and it was actually skeptical that the Romans actually discovered linear perspective before him, but there's no proof of that because if it was lost in the Middle Ages. And he discovered perspective through an experiment using the baptistry in Florence. And what he did was he sketched it all out and noticed that all the lines receded to two common vanishing points. And to prove that this experiment worked, he cut a hole through his painting and then through a mirror and lined it up and had people look through the mirror, or look through the painting at the mirror and then back through the Florence building. And this proved the fact that they were almost identical. And this is one of my drawings from 131. It's a one-point perspective drawing, and at one-point perspective there's only one common vanishing point, and it's right on eye level. This drawing was made through a series of cuts and extrusions. All horizontal and transversal lines are actually parallel and perpendicular to the picture plane in one-point perspective. And once again, there's only one vanishing point and one-point perspective. And this is actually a building on campus going into Hoover that I took. And I just thought it really showed the difference in one-point perspective and two-point perspective. One-point perspective is also very common in roadways, railroads, sidewalks, anything that goes down and meets basically at the horizon line. I thought this was a really good picture to show that. And next we'll go into two-point perspective, which, as you can guess, has two vanishing points. And the interesting thing about two-point perspective is the vanishing points don't need to be on in the picture. And also the horizontal lines are no longer horizontal. They now recede into space to the other vanishing point. And only the vertical transversal lines are parallel and perpendicular to the picture plane. This is another drawing from 131. It's in Beardshire, and I thought it really showed two-point perspective. It has 2 points that are, neither of them are actually on the screen, so I can't really show you where they are. But it was made through a series of organizational line sketches and stuff like that. And this is Parks Library. I thought it was another really good example of showing the two-point perspective and how the lines recede to two different vanishing points on the horizon line. And next we'll go into three-point perspective. And three-point perspective, there's 3 vanishing points. And the third vanishing point can either be above or below. And if the vanishing point is above, it's considered a bug's eye view, which is what this is. This isn't actually my drawing. It's one that I found online. But I thought it really did a good job. And on a bird's eye view, it's just inversed. And the cool thing about this is that none of the lines are actually parallel or perpendicular to the picture plane. So it's actually a lot harder to draw, but it can really capture the effect of perspective that way. And this leads us into atmospheric perspective. And atmospheric perspective basically states that anything that is close is much sharper and anything far away is much duller. And then that also goes into like the color. The colors are more brighter when they're close to you and duller when they're further away. And also the image is actually smaller when it's further away than it is close. And that's shown very well here. The buildings in the front are very sharp, clear, and they're not really colorful. They're all pretty concrete. But if they were, they'd be much brighter. And then the ones far away in the atmosphere are a lot smaller and they're not clear. And it's very important when it comes to perspective drawing that you do this. So basically, to wrap it all up, there's 3 categories of perspective, main categories, 1-point, 2-point, and 3-point. And when you're drawing a linear perspective, it's very important to include atmospheric perspective because that's what actually gives it the realistic look. because as you saw in the first slide, if you don't, the people in the background are the same size as the people in the foreground, and it doesn't look right at all. Easy.
You had really good use of pictures and information that all went together really well. You knew all of your information extremely well and didn't need cards or anything. And you had eye contact like the whole time, so it's really natural.
Thank you. Claire?
You were really confident with delivering everything, which was really good to see, and you didn't even have note cards, so that was really good too.
Thank you. Dan?
I like how you led into each part of like the perspective by saying like, and that brings us to 2 point, and that brings us to 3 point. It was just nice to have like a leeway into the next part.
Thanks. Ben?
Yeah, I thought you did a really, really good job. Since this is such a large topic and it's hard to understand right away, you chose everything that we needed to know if we're gonna understand perspective. So I thought you did a really good job of not only organizing your ideas, but getting the ones that we needed to know.
Thanks. McKenna?
I like how you use this first one, sorry. I like how you use this first one as like what not to do. Not really people think of doing perspective drawing nowadays, so it's kind of cool to see something like that.
Thanks.
Well, I second everything that was said. This is really what a cha-cha should be. Now, you do have options when you have a topic like perspective. You can either do an introduction to the subject, which is what you did, which is fantastic, because there the problem is, as Ben identified, that it's so vast. How do you set and decide what is the minimum that people need to know to understand the concept? You can also, in a topic like this, have the option to do 1 or 2 general slides and then just go to a certain type of perspective and deal with that single type of perspective. So there are other options. I like the one you picked because even though most of you in this room have taken 131, it's still a concept that you get a little bit away from it, etc., and it's nice to hear it tidied up for you again, a reminder there. And I think that if you had someone who came in this room who had no drawing, no introduction to perspective whatsoever, they would go away with a great introduction to what's really happening there. Very good that you didn't need your notes, you knew what you were doing. I like the way you transitioned from slide to slide in particular, because you weren't uptight about hitting it right before or right after. It just went naturally. And as the slides changed, you were never more than a second or 2 away from the one or the other, or you had set us up for the coming change. So it was just an excellent job. Very good.